In September, especially with the new
Fed's
data.
not gonna move their number for, I don't think, until at least the end of this year. So the mortgage rates aren't exactly tied to the Fed rate, they're affected by it, but not directly tied. So rates, I think, are still staying up there for a bit. I closed one the other day, it was 7.5. You know, but it also has to do with what program you're in, what your interest rate is affected by your credit score and the program you're in, and blah, 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 blah. You know, so I think the big refi market that we're all looking for is still a ways away. You know?
That would be like 4%.
I don't mean to start off with a question. but,
Sure, Ed.
I think at this point, sub 6 is 30.
If somebody's looking to buy a house, I know
Yeah.
Ralph is someone, if you're looking in a year, you might wanna talk to Ralph
Right.
that, hey, this is what you gotta do, this is what you gotta do. Would that also work with you because of the contacts that you have? Like, oh, I know bankers, I know this, I know that. Obviously, you deal with a lot of finance companies and you can make good referrals and say, hey, this company sucks, stay away from them, this company is good. Or not really?
We work with a lot of different mortgage people. It's kind of hard to cherry pick, like if people call me and say, you know, who's a good lender to work with? It really depends on what kind of program you're looking for. I think the realtors a lot of times are a better conduit for that because they're closer to the mortgage process as far as the process is concerned. We deal with the lenders from the closing side of things. So we don't always know, like, is the loan officer gonna get you in the right program? We just know how's the back office in getting us to close.
I mean, because I know Ralph got the finance guide for me, and I
Yeah.
just didn't know if, because
Yeah.
you see so much of it, if you,
Yeah.
so it's more deal with the realtor and stuff like that.
Depending on the realtor, I think some realtors know better lenders than others. Some are clueless and just refer.
Well, when I say deal with the realtor, there's only one I deal with.
No, I know. But, you know, once in a while, we'll run across like a hard money lender or something. I have investors once in a while that will call me and say, hey, who do you know? And it's like, you know, if I did one recently, I might remember, but we don't like keep like a short list of lenders per se.
What's a hard money lender? Like a Shylock?
Some
Legal
are
side.
not
Everywhere
a
from
normal
a
bank.
little
Yeah.
more to a lot more.
Me,
Yeah.
I was a hard,
You were hard money, but
I was hard
you were
money.
medium
Yeah,
hard. You were not
if you
really,
want.
really hard. I've seen really hard.
I was, because I was no doc, because I'm self-employed and don't show income, so that's why I was hard. So I just,
Sandwich back,
I couldn't go to a
cash,
standard
table,
institution and say,
hard money.
this is how much money I make a year, this is how much I got, this is how much I got, I couldn't do that.
Like
They
But
had-
there are
that's a
different
shot
kinds of
lock,
hard
yeah.
money lenders out there. There are companies that are hard money lenders, and there are individuals who are hard money lenders. So it just depends on what you're familiar with, what you want to do. You know?
Basically like the family, you know, if you don't pay the loan on them, you get cement shoes. It's that
Yeah.
kind of-
Like Harry Goodstein used to be.
I've seen some recent hard money lenders at 12%.
Really?
Get a little bit,
And
you have to
usually
ask,
they're-
that's how it should be.
And usually they're short-term loans. Usually they're, you know, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years.
It expires in that.
They take the house or they foreclose on you if you don't pay them. So a lot of
They
times
expect you to
contractors,
refinance.
yeah, or
Loans
contractors will
canceled,
use
apply
them.
to the ocean.
They buy a house and fix up. They have hard money lender that they use for short term
So
until they
that's when they have
renovate
to
it.
sell it to get that.
And then they sell it. That's their
Gotcha.
intent is to sell it, not to be in a 30-year mortgage kind of thing. That's kind of what.
Thank you.
Okay, so today, I thought I would talk about wire fraud.
Great job.
Hi, see you later.
See you next week.
Is it me? Is it me? Wire fraud affects our business a lot, but it can also affect all of you in your businesses in ways that you might not think. Just a quick example, you get an email with an invoice that says, you know, you owe, you know, $400 for blah, blah, blah. You know, you're busy, you're a business owner, you pay it, because you pay all your bills. You pay it, because the name kind of sounds familiar, but, you know, maybe you're busy that day, you just write the check. Those are the kind of things you have to watch out for on a personal level and on a business level. I got I actually did a seminar just the other day on this. Cybercrime for 2023 is responsible for $12.5 billion of losses.
That's it? I thought it'd be more. Just for how many phone calls I get and emails I get, I thought there'd be more stupid people.
Yeah,
There are a lot of stupid people.
Well, this is only what's reported. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are too embarrassed to report anything and they just,
We have
Go
one
silent.
that just got banned for like $3,000.
Yeah.
They called up, said, we got the child porn on the computer, do you want us to clean it up, or do you wanna be reported?
right,
She went out and got Apple cards.
right. Yeah, no, it's crazy. So email is the primary conduit of all kinds of fraud. 23% of fraud is through emails. So in our office, when we get emails, we scrutinize every single email that comes through. It is beaten into our heads to watch out for fraud and scams, because being a title company, we're where the money is. So they're gonna target our industry. Any industry that has a lot of money, they're gonna figure it out, okay? So, a lot of times I'll get an email that in the subject line it says, closing disclosure, payoff, think word, keywords, order, keywords that my industry uses all the time. So I'm expecting emails to come in with that information in it. But if I can't identify a specific property or person involved in a transaction that we already have in our system, I won't open it. I don't care what it is. I don't care how real it looks. I just don't open it. I don't open any attachments unless I specifically know what file it's for. Because that's how scammers do it. They send you stuff like, oh, your PayPal account has been compromised, or we just want to confirm that PayPal has this charge for you. And then if you respond and say, no, that's not me, all of a sudden you have communication going on and they've got you. They have a way to cause all kinds of havoc in your world. So for us, we're very careful about that. So what's happening in the future, one of the things to be worried about is AI, because AI really helps the fraudsters figure out how to make things seem real. Like last week when you did your presentation, it was kind of scary, really. When you put in just a few key pieces of information and, you know, in 30 seconds you had a commercial with a voice and it knew enough of the topic to sound legit, you know, and it's AI. And computer learning is really gonna be a problem for a lot of us. We're gonna start seeing things, getting phone calls, things like that. Okay, a couple ways to avoid wire fraud. Never wire money to people that you don't know. Now that may seem simple. Like, of course I wouldn't wire to people I don't know. Okay, so I had a customer who received an email from me, not me, but from me. And somehow the fraudsters got into the email chain between the attorneys and the realtors, okay? So they came in and they mimicked me. It said Julia Bunker, and the email was something like closer@titleagent.com or something like that. It looked kind of legit if you weren't really paying attention. And it said, please make sure that you wire the funds for closing. It needs to be in my account 3 days before closing. I'm gonna be really busy today, so I won't be able to answer your phone calls. Just respond to this email, and then just so I know that it's you, and I will send you my wiring instructions. Okay? It doesn't sound too far off. It could very well have come from me, okay? This client, because he had been warned by his realtors, wasn't necessarily about, but warned by his realtors, because in the contract it says that they signed wire fraud, it's like a full page, wire fraud's dangerous. He'd also been warned by his attorney, because on her email it says wire fraud, very dangerous, you know, be careful, blah, blah, blah. He never talked to me, because I tend not to communicate directly with the buyer or the seller. I want them to go through their attorney as much as possible, because it provides a layer of protection. So the client saw this and was like, why is the title company contacting me? I'm gonna forward that to my attorney. Is this okay? And the attorney was like, absolutely not, don't do anything. So the attorney forwarded it to me, and I'm looking at it going, wow, that's kind of scary. You know, like they jump right in the middle of a conversation. And sometimes they will keep the conversation going on for a while. It's not like a one-shot deal. They'll try and get in early and have inane conversations. But this client was on alert, and that's the only thing we can do is be on alert, be mindful that anybody looking for money is gonna figure out a way to steal your money. Okay, so in our case, we use something called closing lock. It's a secure portal where I tell the client and the realtor and the attorney, I'm gonna be sending you secure wiring instructions. And it's through a secure portal. So I send them at the same time, the portal will send them an email saying, hi, we're closing lock, please go through this portal. And then they get secure wiring instructions. I've never emailed them and I've never faxed them. Faxes and emails can get intercepted. Even faxes can get intercepted these days. They didn't used to be able to be intercepted, but they can now. So we only use a secure portal. So the client goes in, pulls them up, and then they call us and confirm.
Can a scammer use his own secure portal?
Sure,
But not
So
closing.
how do you
lock.
know the difference?
because it's closed, we tell them it's closing lock. We tell them the name of it and they get it at the same time that I send them the email. So it's like, here's my email and here's closing lock. Yes, scammers are smarter than the average bear. They spend lots of time doing things to make it
Lot
look like
smarter than
they're
me.
legit. And it makes us completely crazy. Because in our industry, it's a lot of money being wired back and forth every day. And it can happen to anybody. It can happen to even the most careful person. But that's why you need to take time, pause, and go, okay, is this legit? What we always recommend people do is don't respond to an email that you get with wiring instructions. Contact the person who sent them through a different source. Like if you send me wiring instructions, let's say you're a lender, and you send me wiring instructions. And it says right on there, please contact this number to confirm these wiring instructions. I'm gonna, ignore that. I'm gonna go and find other sources where I know it's a legitimate source. I'm gonna go to their website directly. If it's an attorney's office, I'm not gonna call the number there, I'm gonna call the main office number and make sure that I write down the name of who I spoke to, the number that I called. We try the best we can to protect everybody involved in the situation. And through closing lock, for example, if I have a seller who wants to send me wiring instructions to send them the proceeds from closing, it's a two-point authentication. So I send it to their email and then they have to log in, put in their phone number, and then it sends them an authentication on their phone. I'm sure you guys have done things where you have two-point authentication required. So it's little things like that to try and make it less likely that someone's gonna intercept a wire. The other thing that can happen sometimes is right before someone's about to wire money, they get another email, looks like it's legit. And it says, oh no, send it to a different account. I don't want it going to that account. I want it going someplace else. Well, that's, it can happen that people gave you the wrong instructions the first time. No, we are not gonna pay attention to that. Because we know that title companies have been hit with that, where somebody emails in, looks like it's legit, and says, oh no, send them to this account instead. Well, that's the fraudulent wiring instructions, So we've heard from other title companies where this has happened. We've heard from our underwriters where this has happened to agents. So we are on super high alert, and we try and educate our clients too, to slow down a little bit, because everybody's frantic when it comes to closing time. Everybody has a million other things to do. So we try and be the voice of reason to make sure that we get the right wiring instructions and that we're sending it to the right place. And a lot of times that takes picking up the phone and calling. That's all it is. We're so busy, we email all the time, but you just pick up the phone and call.
It actually, I almost got scammed. When I first opened here, I hadn't had central air for years, and my bill was like $3,000. That's what came on the bill, public service bill. I called them. They called me back, said I had to make a payment, and I had to use prepaid cards. So I said to my buddy, I said, call this number and say it was public service. It was their number, Indeed 7734 is the last word. And so I called my cousin, he was the top, and the guy was so stupid, he said, I'll meet you in Akron. I said, I can't do it any other way. And they picked the guy up, but it actually was public service number, the department and the extension this guy had. However they do it and route it, that's how. But if they ask you for a prepaid card or something, don't do it. It's a scam. But it was so real, and I was upset because I opened in March. I had Mother's Day, and I'm like, oh my God! And I'm ready to go buy all these prepaid cards, and I'm thinking, You know, cause if my light bill
What
was like
business takes
$300, I'd
prepaid
send
cards?
400 and I was
Yeah,
on credit,
that's-
so I never opened it.
that's a red
That right
flag
away.
right there.
They scam me right away.
Right. Another thing that can happen, because we had this happen, is somebody got a hold of one of our checks. They washed it. I don't know how they do this, but they washed it. They changed the name of the payee to blah, blah, blah LLC, you know, Bob Smith LLC. And they went to the bank and they deposited it, or they did it on their phone. You know, these days you can do so much on your phone, which makes it even scarier. Well, we have a system called Positive Pay. Our bank, every night, after all the checks and deposits come through, it matches up with our system in the morning. It's called Positive Pay. A lot of banks have that now. And it goes through every single transaction and matches every point up. If something doesn't match, it kicks it out. And then our accounting person has to go in and manually look at it and go, yeah, that's fine. Or no, there's a problem. So she caught it on Positive Pay. So we track back what happened. Apparently, we mailed the proceeds check to the seller's attorney, which is what he wanted. His office put the seller's proceeds check in a FedEx pouch. Put it in the FedEx box. Somebody broke into the FedEx box and stole all the packages. Then they went, washed the check, and tried to cash it. Meanwhile, so we didn't lose anything because Positive Pay caught it. Meanwhile, the client is calling us saying, you know, where's my money? I don't have it yet. And the attorney tracked the overnight and figured out what happened. Because 3 other packages they put in that box got stolen as well. So the criminals are figuring out that, gee, who has money? The attorney's offices that are sending out small FedEx packages with a check in them to their client are the people who have the money. So they're breaking into these boxes that are in these, you know, big industrial parks or big office parks, and they just take them right out of there.
And Title Evolution would be responsible for that money.
No, because our
Okay.
Positive Pay caught
No,
it.
but I mean, if they didn't.
No, it's the
how would-
attorney.
who would get the money? Oh,
That would be the attorney.
It's the attorney,
Oh.
because he sent it out.
Well,
So,
they better start using big boxes.
yeah, so because we have certain protocols in place, like Positive Pay, nothing ever happened. That money never left our account, because our bank warned us that this came through and the payee was different than what our system said was different, so it matches up every single thing. So it's things like that that you can do in your business to also help from your checks getting washed, because the criminals have figured out ways to do that, and now with being able to, electronically or by your phone, scan a check, there's nobody at the bank scrutinizing it saying, wait a minute, this doesn't look right, you know?
Not unless you
I
make
hate
it
that.
curly Q.
No, actually, they do. I do mobile deposits all the time. And, they go over them, just like you said, whatever, protocols they have in place. They go over, and I had one check, Cynthia wrote me, and she had drafts on her check. Well, the spots on the drafts, the way they lined up with what she wrote on the check, somehow put up a red flag, and they wouldn't accept the deposit.
Yeah.
If you're curly Q and you write weird, mobile deposit will not accept it.
Banks are trying their hardest to stop, bad checks from going through. But the bad guys are also
The
trying. very
scammers are
hard.
smarter than
Yeah.
the banks.
Yeah.
Think of the money,
I know.
think of what they could be.
They got more
if just
manpower.
put their mind-
If they put their mind to
Thinking.
good instead of evil,
Yes.
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 So, as business owners, you also have to look out for yourself, like never put envelopes outside in your mailbox for the postman to pick up.
Yeah, I
Because
do
people
that
now
all the
drive by
time.
and take checks and they wash them and they change who the payee is or the amount. And all of a sudden, your check is out there with a totally different amount, and if you're not paying attention, something comes out of your account that's not to the right person. So, wire fraud is it's a big problem for everybody.
In your line, if someone was trying to do everything in person with you directly, how long do you think that process would take, the coming, like the back and forth of like signing off on everything? Would that even be feasible? Like doing everything in person, one-on-one, whatever payment or anything like that?
A lot of people come in and do their closing with us, and it takes about an hour
Okay.
to go through everything. It's not a big deal. Sellers come, usually takes them less than a half an hour to do all their stuff. So it's not really a time thing, but the problem is everybody's so busy and they want everything
inconvenience,
automated and they
yeah.
don't wanna sign and they don't wanna come in because they think they can do everything on their phone.
Yeah,
You know,
Well, you haven't
everybody
talked
wants to
about-
do everything on their phone.
And I think you can, right?
to some degree,
can.
yeah.
No,
No.
not quite. A lot of lenders are going to, hybrid closings, which half of it, they're signing everything electronically on their phone. Like the loan application and a lot of the silly documents, as we call them, all the compliance documents, tax documents, things like that. But they still have to come to our office to wet sign certain documents, like the mortgage itself, the mortgage that gets recorded, sometimes the note, sometimes the note's not, and other documents have to be notarized, have to be done in my presence.
When I just saw my father's house in West Virginia, I ran into the title company down there. I think they needed 2 live signatures, maybe 3. They had them on the carrier boat and I was done. Everything else was mobile, DocuSign, and they used another one, another secure one, but it was like
Yeah,
done.
what's the legal thing like with that? Cause when we sold the house, you had electronically signed, it looked nothing like my signature.
No,
But the
no,
notary did come 3 days later to
Right.
my house and I signed.
right.
But I mean, is all that legit, like,
Well, DocuSign is something a lot of the realtors are using, because it allows people to sign contracts and other documents remotely, and DocuSign does keep a record of whose email logged on, when they clicked, basically signed the documents. So that's what DocuSign uses as their platform, but for title companies, DocuSign is not enough, of a security, because let's say your spouse knows your email address and how to get into your email, and all of a sudden they're click, 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 like they're you, and they say, yes, that's me. All of a sudden you sign documents. So for a contract, the realtors are fine with using DocuSign, but for closings, we're no.
I sign everything for him,
She's got my DocuSign login.
but I mean, I physically sign everything.
Right. Now, there are platforms now where you can do remote online notary. It's called RON, and that is something that is legal to do. The underwriters were kind of forced into it when COVID hit because people couldn't travel, they couldn't get places, they couldn't be in buildings. So certain platforms can be used for remote notary, but those platforms, there's only a certain amount that are legitimate to use, and it's not WhatsApp, it's not Zoom. Those are not legitimate platforms to use. Remote online notary, basically the notary logs in to a secure portal, the customer logs into a secure portal, the customer holds up certain documents to prove who they are, and the system records all this information. And then the whole interaction with the notary is also recorded and uploaded into the cloud and maintained. So that is something that is available, but me personally, I prefer having a buyer sitting in front of me signing if I'm notarizing their signature.
The one thing you didn't discuss, some people are bringing false certified checks to this place.
There have been cases, when I worked for a prior title company, there was a case where somebody brought what looked like a cashier's check, but apparently it was not. They were able to unwind the transaction because it was a transaction between family. It was fraud from the beginning, apparently. But after that happened, then we had to go through a procedure where every single dollar coming to closing, the closers had to call the bank that supposedly issued it. So the customer had to get the actual phone number of the bank that issued the cashier's check, and we had to talk to the teller that issued it and fill out a form. It was,
but with the bank,
It was
which the bank
expensive.
felt was fraudulent, check? and
no,
it went through the system?
no, they brought a check that they made up. So
Right.
there was no bank.
Oh, yeah, but if you gave me one of these checks and I took it to my bank and deposited,
Right.
wouldn't that bank know it was,
Not right away.
Not
Yeah.
immediately.
Not always,
no?
not always. So,
Until it starts going through the system then.
yeah.
That used to be a scam where they would say, we'll give you a cashier's check for like $100,000, but we need you to pay the service fee of like $2,000, but you get to keep the rest. And then you'd pay the $2,000, and then the check would bounce like a week or two later, and everybody'd be out.
That was when you did it in
Oh, wait.
person. I always put my scan check through the
If it's too good to be
machine,
true,
and
it
it
is.
usually kicked it out immediately. Because I would get that from like a real estate listing or something like that, like room for rent kind of thing, and you'd get a lot of those.
But if, let's say you put the check through, you think it's legitimate, you put the check through the scanner says that's legitimate, and then it goes to
Yeah.
the sending bank. Let's say the check was
Then they
washed.
kick it back.
Okay.
The scanner was usually good. I never had an issue where it didn't kick it out immediately, but
Right.
yeah, if it did,
But when it goes to the
Go
sending
through.
bank, and the sending bank says, no, that's not our check, or is reported as fraud, then that money that you thought was in your account and wrote a check
Mhm.
against, now is no longer on your
'Cause it's
account.
already
So
out.
now you've bounced everything.
yeah,
And that's what the fraudsters are hoping, and they're hoping that you sent them money
before you
before,
found the farm,
you
yeah.
know, so, yeah. Whenever you get a check in the mail that you're not expecting, question it. Yeah, if somebody sends you a check for $2,000 and it says commissions on it, question it. Like, why am I
And when
getting
it
this
does clear,
check?
Then they have all your banking information
You know,
when they get
so,
it back.
so just be aware,
That's another,
idea what the hell
Just
they're
they
doing.
send you checks.
yeah, so, anyway, anything else?
I just want to comment one thing, just that we do, because we have the same issue where people will request money, obviously, or want to make transactions. One of the things that we'll do is and I get emails all the time, please send, and they're legitimate as a general rule, but we will not send anybody money without verifying that with a phone call. So if you send me an email and say, please send me $2,000 from my account, we won't, I may respond, but I'll be like, well, I need to follow up with you or whatever. And I won't obviously follow up or through the email, but that way there's a best practice where you're verifying with the person, you know, verbally. And to answer your question about DocuSign, what you do is you attest to, because we use DocuSign all the time, you have to attest to that signature is a valid representation that you're allowing it to be used. And that's kind of how they get away with it not being your signature. But you can also import, like I imported like a PDF of my signature, so when I signed, it's actually my real signature.
See, I wouldn't want it out there. You know that Osborne, the attorney. I drove this woman crazy because I was handling, everything for the estate is different, because it was very different. But I told her, you're only in Chesterfield, and I'm coming to you, I wanna sign everything, and I want a copy of everything. And she kept wanting me to email everything, she wanted me to DocuSign and do that. And I was like, it's just not gonna happen. And the deal fell through, and then we got a